Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting, November 7th, 2024. We'll get started right away with general business. First item is to approve the draft minutes from October 10th. Any board members have any comments on the draft minutes?
Okay.
Okay, I know you're absent, Lisa.
Yeah.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the draft minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item is to distribute the, everyone has a copy of the 2025 Planning and Zoning Board meeting schedule. In terms of the Planning Board, essentially, the meetings are generally the second Thursday, of every month, with the exception of February, because there's holidays later in the month. And November, same reason. It's the first, on both those cases, it's the first Thursday of the month. And we have August and December open for optional meetings if we need them. Anybody have any comments? I don't.
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay. So Cindy, we can go ahead and, I guess, publish that, right? Post that on the website eventually when you get the concurrence from the zoning board also, right? They're meeting soon, aren't they? Well, they come after us, so
Yeah,
It'll
the
be li-
zoning board will be meeting
later this month.
on November 20th, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. All right, next item is to just talk about the New York Planning Federation. They have some training bundles for planning and zoning board members, which you can take for free online. And the bundles are to catch up for anyone who doesn't have their 4 hours of credit for the year. You can catch up in one shot. And the registration deadline is December 30th. I guess you can actually take it right up to the last day of the month to get your 4 hours of credit in. Next planning board meeting is scheduled for January 9th of 2025. If we need a meeting in December, it appears at the present time we do not. But if we do need one, we'll be talking about that later tonight. But as I said, looking at the agenda, it does not appear that we'll need a meeting in December this year. At 6:30, we're going to resume the public hearing for 75 North Country Road, which is Mather Hospital. Just the purpose of the meeting is to remove the drainage retention area scope of work from the previously approved drainage retention area and file it under separate application. We have some new information which we'll be talking about. If anyone's here to comment on the project, it's simply a segregation of the drainage retention area from the previously approved resolution for the project. So it's more of a housekeeping thing. So if you're here, coming here to comment, we're not going to entertain previous comments on the project, such as, tree clearing or anything else. We had a lot of comments in the initial approval. So it's really just focused on the decoupling. It's an administrative type of action, so it's not really it's kind of a formality. or I shouldn't say a formality, but an administrative action that's just segregating two parts of the previously approved project. So just letting anyone know, we're gonna do that at 6:30. Second public hearing is 1 Reeves Road, which is also gonna be done following Mather Hospital at 6:30. In the meantime, we'll commence with some of the work sessions items. So the first item is 224 East Main Street. We have talked about this a couple of times, so we're not gonna read all the details in. It's the Performing Arts Studio on the second floor of the building. So Deirdre, if you want to bring us up to date on what's happened since the last meeting?
So since the last meeting, there was a few extensions that were requested because there was a little bit of a back and forth with the tenant and the owner about getting the plans drawn up. Because this has been an existing use in the building, so it's really just we wanted to see what has changed from the last recorded floor plans that we had. Last it said it was 2 offices. They've not updated their CO or gotten a business registration or an operating license, everything that is required for the use that it is now. So we finally did get more so like a sketch, a bit, I believe, of the floor plans, where it's really just they took down a lot of the walls that were inside, and if anything, erected more low walls and a stage area for like their smaller performances. They moved around some of the bathrooms, but there's still the bathroom. It doesn't look like they did major work, but that would be another thing that we would require a building permit for, just to legalize the work that was done and make sure it was done up to code.
When you say second floor, you mean second floor on East Main Street?
So so this is the ground floor of East Main Street. The second floor of this building from East Main Street is, I believe, 3 one-bedroom apartments. So those also need apartment registrations up to date as well.
Okay.
And then there's the Trader Coat address, which is another retail store.
Deidre, the upper right-hand corner, that's the entrance for the apartments on the upper floor.
I believe. Oh, around here?
Yes, and there's a door still open to the
Yes.
street.
Yep.
Thank you. And you said there are 3 apartments upstairs?
That's what the last CO said. It was 3 one-bedroom apartments, I believe. I can check that, but I think that's what it was. But again, that's something that hopefully they can bring that upstate. That's one of the requirements that we would request.
Okay, and anything outstanding on this? Are we getting an opinion from the fire marshal on this, or not?
Well, that's where they'll come in for the operating license and let them know if there's anything, but that's more towards the building department. This
So-
was really just kind of establishing what has been there, the conditional use, and just legalizing everything that's there.
Okay, so that'll be down the road when we
Yeah,
go
but
for
they'll
a
need
building
business
permit.
registrations, operating licenses, apartment licenses.
Okay.
CO will need to be changed and updated, all of that.
Okay.
So the building department plans on verifying what's on the 3rd floor?
Correct.
Before this happens?
Yeah, they
Okay.
won't get a CO, a new updated CO, until the fire marshals go in and the building inspector goes in to make sure that everything is either in accordance with the
Okay.
previous CO, or they need to file more permits if there was other changes.
Yeah, and I see some information on there, I think distance to exit from the, extremities of the building.
Mhm.
So that's important information for the fire marshal.
No, it's just, we had a long time trying to get the sketches to begin with. Amy wasn't able to be here, so that's why it's also kind of wanted to wait, because it's conditional use and it's for the public hearing. So wanted to, we recommend them going to the public hearing and setting a public hearing date and there we go. Or it'll be conditional, but permits and all that.
Okay. So we're not at the level we're ready to set a date.
I believe we are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, That's just why there's no resolution. We still
Okay.
do the public hearing.
So we could probably set it to January. So that'll give you, well, you've already done a review on this, right? I don't know if you need more time to make any more comments or.
Probably not really. I'll just
Okay.
check with the fire marshals. I believe I sent them this, so I'll see if they have any feedback just from looking at this, if they have any concerns. I was going to also request pictures of the inside as well, just for the record. So,
That makes sense.
what
Yeah.
is, because some of the stuff, although it says low walls, I just want to make sure what low walls mean. So just
Yeah.
things like that.
Okay. Any board members have any questions? Okay, so we can just, everybody okay with setting a public hearing date for January 9th? Okay, so we'll do that.
Yeah, but then it got brought to.
Okay, I think we have time to go through another item. The Pie Restaurant, this may take a little while, do you think, Deirdre?
I don't know if the owner's here for that application. And I believe if you had any questions, she'd be here to answer it for the pie,
Oh.
right?
Okay, so, yeah. So she may be coming, but,
She's supposed to be coming.
oh, she is coming. All
Yep.
right, so we'll skip that. 31 Pilgrim Drive.
So that one, the homeowner also couldn't make the meeting tonight. She had to work, what's it called? She is out of town, a work conflict. She's out of town, for the time being, and she requested that the, matter be discussed at the January hearing.
Okay. Okay, so next is 25 Waterview Drive.
She's also supposed to be coming, but. It's also not on here, but I just wanted to mention it was supposed to be on here. The 1600 application, I don't know if it was broadcasted, but that's being postponed so far because we got a little bit of confusion and the property owner had some issues with the ARC comments and stuff like that. So that's also why they're not on the agenda. I just want to remember before I forget.
That's going off into January.
Yep.
And Andy, I guess 115 West Broadway will be pretty quick also.
Well,
Yes.
I'm here to discuss,
Yeah, you want to come up and use the mic?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, we do have a public hearing on this evening, but before that, the whole reason why we separated out the drainage reserve area from the application of Mather Hospital was because we were seeking a grant to subsidize and assist with the construction of the drainage.
Okay, I think we want to talk about 115.
Oh,
right?
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question on the Mather application. I hear segmentation. My
Oh.
antennas go up.
Yes.
Any issues there? with
No,
Secra?
it's
Nothing?
not a secret thing.
Nothing?
No.
Okay.
So 115 West Broadway, can you pull that up? Okay, so the applicants came in to planning, they wanted to prep the building for not a particular use, but to get the building ready to market. They had come to us with an application to remove the walk-in freezer and rearrange the parking area. We had a preliminary discussion with them. We discussed some of the issues with regard to this. Parking is an issue. The original restaurant required 33 spaces.
And that's the old McDonald's.
was classified as a restaurant. Therefore, it required 33 spaces. It got the 33 spaces because at the time, you were allowed to take credit within 200 feet of the municipal parking area. So we believe that's how they got parking then. That is no longer in our code. So the applicants cannot take credit for that. So they come up short in the first instance of about 17 spaces. Here, I think though that we could work with the applicant, get it down to about 7 spaces that they would require. Once they remove the freezer and rearrange it, they'll have some spaces on site. Something the board should consider is that the shortfall, they have 2 options. They can go for a pilot, or they can go for a variance. The pilot in the C1 zone has been established by the board of trustees at $6,500 per parking stall shortfall. So that comes out to $6,500. As opposed to C1. So we're at that point. The applicants have turned in easement language, which I reviewed. I asked our planning and zoning board attorney to review it. I cannot find any restrictions on that easement, and I could not find what the easement was for. This easement goes all the way back to the original water company that was here in the 20s. And then that easement was passed on to the next water company, et cetera, until it finally wound up with Suffolk County Water. So I did an inspection of the area, and I can see the meter pit, but I don't know if there's a main there. I don't know what's there. So we still have not been able to establish that, according to the water authority, what the purpose of that is. Having said all that, the easement is not on this applicant's property at all. It's on the adjacent, what we would call the fish market property. There is a guardrail which separates the fish market property from a little bit of no man's land called the gore strip. Can you look at the site plan? And the gore strip is where 2 surveys don't meet on that monument. So there's about 5 feet in between fish market and the property line for the McDonald's building. It's a void. Yeah, it's a void. But it's there, and then the easement is to the east of that. So the easement really isn't in play for the McDonald's application. Taking down the guardrail, we would have to get the water authority to insist that the fish market take the guardrail off of the easement, but we don't know if the easement allows anything on it. So we're still trying to work that out, but I think the only way this guardrail becomes relevant is if an applicant wants to combine the 2 pieces. Otherwise, this applicant is stuck with 5 feet with the site plan. The original site plan. So that's the issue is how do we address the parking? We made a recommendation on the site plan. That's not it. That's the original site plan. I can point this out though. This is the freezer that they would like to remove. And this is a handicap parking space over here that we would like to rearrange if we can get to the site plan.
Isn't this property, what the previous use was for a restaurant? No, it's considered a restaurant.
The previous use was a restaurant, yes, not takeout, a sit-down restaurant, right.
So it's vacant, but they don't necessarily lose the use, do they?
If they come back as a restaurant, it would be the continuation of prior use.
Right.
Although, I'm not sure if they make any changes to the site, then they would not grant into parking. Okay. Thank you. So this is the proposed site plan. What we would like to do is, as you can see, they have this asphalt driveway from the curb to the property line of 13 feet. It's substandard. We could probably go back and forth over this gore strip because we don't really know who owns it. But this guardrail here is what separates the two property lines, this guardrail. So when you come in with a car and you go, oh, there's no parking, and all these spots are parked in, it's very tough to get out. If you take this handicap spot, move it down here, the handicap spot is not always full. And if somebody does come in here, you could use the handicap spot as a T to back out and turn around. So we're just asking them to flip-flop the handicap spot to here where the freezer was. Even doing that, they would have 7 spots on site. They would be short 7 or 8 more spots. So they would need to go for variance in their parking or go for pylon. So that's really where we are with the application. The applicants, I don't know if the applicants are here tonight, but they were having some discussions with the landowner, so they were slowing down their application a little bit, wanted us to hold off on any kind of action, serious review. So I'm really just bringing you up to date.
Okay. So essentially, they've asked us to wait
They've asked us to wait.
because they've got some negotiations going. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, we've got about 5 minutes before the public hearings start.
Chairman, I just wanted to clarify. I misspoke before. The Performing Arts already had their public hearing and it was closed.
Oh.
So I'll have the resolution at the January hearing so that could be voted on and
Oh, okay,
move on that process.
okay. Thanks.
So it's Mather Hospital first, and then after Mather, we have on Reeves Road.
And then we'll go back and do the 2 work sessions where the applicants weren't here yet. We had a lot of people come in. Okay, before we start the Mather Hospital hearing, which is 75 North Country Road, I just want to reiterate that we're just going to be talking about the drainage retention area, which is the recharge basin on the site. We originally closed the hearing on this a long time ago, probably a year and a half ago, I guess, probably longer. I think it was during COVID, right? Yeah. So we're only doing an administrative thing where the drainage retention area design gets pulled out of the their overall approved project. And we're going to be talking about a grant, but we do have some new information, which I'm not going to get into until we start the hearing. But we're not going to entertain any comments on things such as clearing. I mean, I'm just throwing these out there as examples. Traffic or number of parking spaces or things like that. We're really just focused on this administrative type of action. So we still have a couple of minutes. And we never start the hearings early in case someone is late getting in. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that'll take us 2 minutes. Or 4 minutes. Barbara? Okay, the mic's on, okay. Colorblind.
That application, we talked about that, the second that we have, but there was one question that was asked in the older versions of the land use, I'm sorry, of the zoning map. This area here that is zoned, is this the old map? This was RO back in the day, and it was redone to PO. So that was that was the largest zone change that was done, and that was done after the master plan, the update was adopted. The other,
That's not right.
no, this is not the latest one, Deidre. Is it? Yeah, this is,
Because the corner of
this is right.
Pine Hill and North Country Road, that triangle piece is PO.
In here,
Right.
yeah,
It's set.
yeah, it's PO. Yeah. The other zone change is more recent, up in the northwest corner of the village off of Beach Street. There were parcels up there that were owned by Northville. And back in the day, the zoning was not accurate on those parcels. So recently, within the last year, Northville asked the village to correct that, which we did. So now the one piece that's green up on that corner is the only MW1 piece off of Shelby. Yep, Shelby. So those are the only two zoning changes that were made probably in the last couple of decades on this map. It's all up to date, it's all been checked. So if you have any questions, please let me know. We're gonna talk about it with the ZBA at their next meeting. If there are no substantive changes or questions on the map, we're gonna ask the village to adopt it. We're gonna post our new zoning map on the internet, on our website.
Okay. All right, for those who are watching at home, we were just talking about the updated zoning map. Andy Freeling was describing only a couple of changes on it. And it's all GIS based now, is it? So, which is helpful. Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll get started now with the public hearings. First up, 75 North Country Road, again, is Mather Hospital. Who's going to, did I see Anthony here? You going to be the quarterback tonight, so to speak, for the project? When you come up, though, we have some new information on the grant. I mean, this is very new. It's half hour ago, so we just found out. Unfortunately, no, it's not good news. The village had gone for a grant to improve the drainage retention area substantially. The grant application, we just found out literally today, I guess, that the grant was not approved. A lot of, I think 11 out of 13 grants went to lower income municipalities. Only 2 went to non-low income municipalities across the state. Yeah, you should make sure that green light's on the microphone too. So that being said, the purpose of this meeting was to discuss the segregation of the drainage retention area. Given the fact that thank you. Given the fact that we have new information, and I know you've had a lot of time to think about this, maybe you want to give us your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, I don't think it actually, I'll state my name, Anthony Guardino.
Excuse,
Yes.
we need to read it in first, the application into the record.
Okay, well, it's a continuation of a hearing, so I don't know that you need to read in the particulars. I think everybody's familiar with the, you talk about the particulars,
Yeah, because it's
From
the
the
first
agenda?
public
It's the
hearing.
first
of
public
it
hearing, yeah.
being
That's
appeared back.
probably a good idea.
okay,
think so.
we'll read it
Yeah.
in again.
We're on, okay. 75 North Country Road, site plan amendment, application number PB 0702
dash 24, location is 75 North Country Road, Suffolk County Tax Map Number, Section 17,
Block 3, Lot 3.2. Zoning district is PO Professional Office. Property owner, Mather Northwell Hospital. Contact is Anthony S. Guardino, partner, Farrell Fritz, PC. Description, applicant proposes to remove the drainage retention area, DRA, scope of the work for the previously approved DRA and file it under a separate application when an understanding of the terms of a New York State funded grant applied for are submitted. Action tonight is the public hearing.
Okay.
Great. Again, Anthony Guardino, partner with the law firm of Farrell Fritz, representing Northwell Mather Hospital. So, thank you for that information, even though it's not great news. I don't think it changes the nature of this application, the purpose of this application, which is, as was mentioned earlier, is really to decouple or amend the condition from the July 14th, 2022 resolution that granted site plan approval for the master plan for Northwell Mather. One of the conditions required that the approval of a redesigned drainage reserve area, the DRA that we're referring to, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the emergency department and surgical services expansion. It's been a couple of years now, as people know, it's nearly complete. But we haven't really advanced the DRA redesign because of a number of issues, and most recently was this grant. Because I will tell you that the Northwell Mather would like to redesign this drainage reserve area to accommodate 9 inches of rainfall. The village does not want to spend the money for that type of capacity. So we're trying to figure out, the village was willing to participate in the more robust redesign of the DRA, but only if the grant was awarded, and that turned out not to be the case. So now we have to figure out, we're going to be redesigning the drainage reserve area, we just don't know to what extent, because we have to now continue to work with the village to figure out what they're willing to contribute. And although we don't know exactly what the redesign of the DRA will look like at this point, we do know that the village has agreed that based on the amount of water that it's been discharging into the existing DRA, that the village will be responsible for 20% of the cost of the drainage reserve area, and Northwell Mather will be responsible for the other 80%. But we're at the point now where the emergency department improvements are nearly complete. And I'm not totally familiar with the process, but my understanding is that at the state, there are certificates of need and some licensing or other approvals that are required from the state that can't be had until you have a permanent C of O. So we're at like an inflection point here. We have to, otherwise we're not opening the emergency room. So what we're looking to do tonight is to decouple, amend that condition to not make the DRA redesign a condition of the CO for phase 1 improvements, but that doesn't mean to not, do the improvements, not complete the improvements, just not right this second, because now in light of this additional information, there's going to be some back and forth. We have to figure out what the village exactly, what this redesign is going to look like, and how we pay for it. Again, the hospital is not looking to shirk its responsibilities here. It agreed that it would do make these improvements. What I'm thinking is that the board, my understanding is, I guess, that the board would require a performance bond, and Northwell Mather is happy to post that performance bond. We just have to figure out, the board has to figure out what that amount will be. We did submit a cost estimate, but we submitted a cost estimate for the whole ball of wax, for the 9-inch, and that doesn't look like that's going to be the way this is going to go. So presumably the amount is going to be reduced, still with the 80-20 split. But so I think at this point we would just need to, I think the board just needs to come up with a bond amount if it's inclined to grant this application, and decouple, you know, the responsibility for the DRA improvements, not eliminating them, but just putting them off, deferring them to another day when we can get further down the road with the village and figure out exactly what we're going to do here.
Okay, and maybe just to reiterate, the DEC, New York State DEC, actually, if I'm correct, and you can correct me,
I'm gonna let
their
Andrew
standard
go.
is a 3-inch.
Correct.
3-inch rainfall.
Right.
Which seems antiquated.
It
However,
does, but
it's based on the fact that the area of the site that discharges into the basin has been reduced with the new design, because
That's
some of the parking field, good portion of the parking field drainage is being taken care of elsewhere on the site.
exactly. That's
So,
exactly right.
If
You
I
want
could
this-
summarize.
this
Yeah,
is
you probably want to
Andrew,
get
you wanna-
sworn in
Yep.
and name and address.
Andrew Kelly with VHB Engineering. We have offices at 100 Motor Parkway, Hauppauge, New York. We are the landscape architects and civil engineers on the project. Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, so the New York State DEC requires, under new construction projects, a 100-year storage capacity, which is a 9-inch capacity, equates to around a 9-inch capacity. The 3-inch capacity that you referenced before is actually the village code requirement. So the DEC does require the 100-year storage capacity, which again equates to around a 9-inch storage capacity.
Okay. Oh, isn't there a condition though of the DEC that if your area is being reduced?
So I know some of the village planning staff had conversations with the DEC recently about this. However, when we filed our SWIP, which is required for a project of this size, the DEC required that we include the entire site for the 100-year storm.
Is this
And
new
this came-
information? I just-
No, this has been in discussions with the planning staff since the beginning of the project.
Okay.
When we filed for the initial SWIP application, they wanted us to include. Previously, we had excluded that area that was not being disturbed from our 100-year storm calculation. However, when we submitted the NOI to the state, they rejected it and asked for us to store for the 100-year storm for the entire site. And that is currently the condition with our open SWIP permit that we have today.
Okay. Now, could you talk about the wicks that were proposed or as an option?
So we've gone through multiple options. Currently, the option right now is for a 9-inch capacity. It includes the regrading of the DRA area as well as the scraping of the bottom to get us up to that 100-year storm capacity with infiltration. We did also propose a few wicks in the bottom of or diffusion wells, you could call them, in the bottom of the DRA to help with some additional capacity and also help get down to some clean, free draining material. However, our calculations right now without the wicks will still handle the 100-year storm. So the wicks are just an added belts and suspenders to help provide some more resiliency for the future. Obviously, as we all know, we've been seeing more significant rain events as of late. So our recommendation is to provide for the higher capacity to ensure a resilient design.
Okay. So based on the information about the grant, that's all the more reason to decouple this and have it on its separate timetable, so to speak. Okay. And I'm sure there will be discussions with staff about review of the design, and yeah, as you mentioned, there's a 20% village share in the improvements. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Barbara.
Yes, I would like to know how long you anticipate this postponement to be.
Well, that's hard to say in light of, we have this new information. We were hoping, because I think it had been designed for the 9-inch, right? We
Mhm.
were on our
That's
way.
correct.
And we still think that that is the right, from the hospital's perspective, that is still the right way to go.
Mhm.
But the village doesn't have the money to contribute the 20% to that more robust improvement. We just have to figure that out. So right at this point, in light of today, I mean, we're taking kind of just a step backwards, but it's a small step backwards. Now we need to re-engage with the village.
Let's say that the grant was approved. What kind of timeline would we have been looking at? Couple of years or 1 year or?
No, I don't think it would have been a couple of years. I think if the grant had been approved, we would have kicked off final design to file with, to receive the grant, the full grant monies, and we would have moved forward, as soon as we could have. To Anthony's point, I think this just kind of slows us down a little bit. We'll have to go back to the drawing board a bit to discuss options.
And we still do have to work out a new easement. The village, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Earlier application with the city, the village, we have there's an existing easement, as you
Mhm.
know. Village attorney, acknowledgement by the village attorney that we do have to revisit that. Because
Sure.
it doesn't really allow for what's happening today,
Mhm.
and so we want to kind of bring that pretty current, so that it addresses the situation as it exists today, and that's in everyone's interest.
So can we kind of ballpark it to 5 years or less?
Oh, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
life
5
gets
years
in the
is
way.
not-
And I can see people going, whatever happened to, but
We're not
yeah,
envisioning a time,
okay.
Yeah, no,
year,
yeah.
maybe, or
It all depends on the timeline of working back and forth with the village to arrive at a design that both parties are willing to accept.
Very good. That answers my question.
And,
Thank you
and
very
one of the
much.
key things in the meantime, in case we get a heavy storm, is that some of that water that was going into that retention area is already out of it.
That's correct. So we actually, as part of the ED improvements, we actually removed approximately 14 acres of contributing area from the
That's-
DRA. So the load on the DRA has been significantly decreased since the ED improvements. So
And the total
That's-
site is how many acres?
uh, 38.77 acres.
Okay, so 14 out of 38,
Yeah.
so substantial
It's a
reduction.
Substantial amount, yep.
Any other questions, board?
I'd like to talk about how we can, rest assured that at a certain point in time, this DRA will get constructed or the work will be done. There's been discussion about a performance bond, but I was thinking more along the lines of a completion bond. Because a performance bond is only for isn't it for a portion of the construction costs? Covers a portion of the construction costs?
Well, I think the bond covers the entire site work. cost of
It
the site work.
usually,
That's what I'm envisioning.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
usually it's a portion that the applicant would be required to pay, but the bonding company is insuring the entire
The entire
amount.
thing.
So,
I got it.
Yeah, the idea is that the money's there to actually complete the improvements.
sorry.
And we're not looking to get out of that in any way. We want to make sure that, listen, this benefits everyone, and we really would like to do it. And unfortunately, hearing the news today, that's, like I said, that's a slight setback, but we're obviously going to be moving forward. We just probably going to be moving forward on a slightly different path.
Right.
But
Any other board questions?
Just, is there any possible savings if you realize the amount of drainage improvements you're getting from the wicks themselves? You know what I mean? If like wood, you're going to be getting percolation at a certain rate based on thing being full because of a storm. Does that allow you that rate based on that storm? Would that allow you to reduce the amount of work on the recharge basin? To reduce the cost, instead of 100 cubic yards, you only have to remove 50 cubic
Mhm.
yards, that type of thing. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Or would the DEC even let you allow, would the DEC even allow you to consider that, or they want the, the storage and then the wick is just an,
The DC will still allow the infiltration
Mm.
or the wicks, I should say.
right?
I think it all comes down to a matter of the square footage we have at the bottom of the basin to be
Yeah.
able to fit how many we can, right? Obviously, as you go deeper, you're losing usable square footage at the
Right.
bottom. That's why we were only able to fit 2 or 3 in there at this point. But we could explore that and run the numbers and see how much more it gets us now with the news of the grant.
Right. I'm just curious because you do have very good material beneath that
Yes.
lens of
Mhm.
garbage. that-
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, board, staff, any comments, questions? No. Okay. At this point, we typically open it up to questions from the public. I know there's been speaker cards circulated. I do not have any speaker cards on this project. If anyone came in late, we ask that any comments or questions relate to what we've discussed tonight, which is the segregation of the DRA, drainage retention area design. So if anyone came in late and has a comment on that or question, just raise your hand. Okay, I don't see anybody. So at this point, I don't know, are we amending this again, or can we close this? Well, we haven't had no comments on the design, so we can move forward. So I assume we can close the public hearing.
Yeah, nobody showed up, so I would anticipate.
Yes.
Okay,
And this one's been around for a little while.
all right. Can I get a motion to close the hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 1 Reeves Road. Cindy, if you want to read in the particulars of this. This is a new hearing.
One Reeves Road, site plan, change of use, conditional use application. Application number 0697-24. Location is the vacant Amy Tyler Dance School. Suffolk County tax map number is section 17, block 4, lot 12. Zoning is the RO Residential Office District. Property owner is the United Way of Long Island Corp. Contact is Allison Corby, Town of Brookhaven, Commissioner of Housing and Community Development, and Philip Butler, partner, Cara Forcelli, Deegan, and Tarana, attorneys at law. Description is a site plan, conditional use, and change of use application for a proposed demolition of an existing single-family home dance school and construction of a new two-family residence. Action tonight is a public hearing.
Okay. You'll need to be sworn in. She's okay, yeah.
Gregory Kalminski, with Pacelli, Deegan, Tarana, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Okay, I represent the United Way of Long Island Corp. In connection with their application here at 1 Reeves Road, and the tax map is District 206, 17, 4-12. The zone that we're in is the Residence Office RO zone. The lot is approximately 2.65 acres, or 115,216 square feet. The property here is bound by Reeves Road to the east, Main Street to the north, and has an existing right-of-way running over the property entitled Vantage Court to its south, which provides access to an adjacent development.
It maintains approximately 16 feet of frontage on Main Street, 355 feet of frontage on Reeves Road. It shares a border with 8 Reeves Road that is approximately 166 feet. Fronts the Cedar Hill Cemetery for about 403 feet, and fronts an adjacent property on Main Street for about 423 feet. It's presently improved with a single-story, single-family home that was constructed in 1969 and was most recently used by the now vacant Amy Tyler School of Dance. The site is currently serviced by a U-shaped driveway adjacent to the intersection of Reeves Road and Main Street, as well as another curb cut that is located further south on Reeves Road. As stated previously, there is also a roadway going over the property to access another development. Adjoining the property to the northwest and south are residential land uses with commercial uses to the east. So we're proposing the construction of a new 2-family home. The proposed project is 100% zoning compliant, and we're before the planning board today for site development plan review and the conditional use permit for the 2-family home. The site development plan proposes 1 curb cut rather than the pre-existing 2 curb cuts
Further away from Main Street, thereby mitigating against any possible impact to the traffic on
on Main Street. The proposed 2-family home will be accessed via a single driveway on Reeves Road and lead to an asphalt driveway area. There will be 1 garage serving each residential unit and at least 2 parking spaces outdoors in the asphalt driveway area in front of the garages, where the vehicles may park in a manner that is parallel to Reeves Road. The site can easily accommodate up to 6 vehicles and possibly more, and the code requires 4. The proposed site development plan does not show any disturbance to property that is not already developed at the site, and thus will have no effect on landscaping and trees. The site's drainage will be served by a series of 4 catch basins, 5 dry wells, and a proposed trench drain adjacent to the driveway's entrance in compliance with the village's drainage requirements, thereby ensuring that any water is captured on site and mitigates against any impact to adjacent property. The 2-family home structure is proposed to remain at 1 story, where each residential unit is essentially a mirror image of the other, separated by a party wall. The floor plans show for each residential unit the garage, an open concept living room with kitchen and dining room, 2 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and a small outdoor patio area in the rear of the property. Each residential unit is going to be approximately 1,600 square feet. Turning to the site plan criteria that the board must review, Village Code Section 250-52 governs approval of site development plans. Its overall objectives are to, quote, take into consideration public health, safety, and welfare, the comfort and convenience of the public in general, and of the residents in the immediate neighborhood in particular. It provides the following specific objectives, which I'll state and then indicate how we are addressing. First is traffic access, that all proposed traffic access and ways are adequate but not excessive in number, adequate in width, grade alignment, and visibility. We're actually reducing the current access to the site because the intensity of use is decreasing. We submit to the board that dance studio is a more intensive use that will generate more traffic than a 2-family home. So the next issue is circulation and parking. Code requires adequate off-street parking and loading spaces are provided to prevent parking in public streets of vehicles of any person connected with or visiting the use, and that the interior circulation system is adequate to provide safe accessibility to the required off-street parking lots. As discussed previously, the site has the capacity to hold an excess of 6 parked cars where the code requirement is for 4 vehicles. 2 cars can park in the garage, and 4 cars can park in the asphalt driveway platform that's parallel to Reeves Road. The site can accommodate all these vehicles while maintaining free site circulation for all through the driveway. The next issue is landscaping and screening. The code requires that all playground, parking, and service areas are reasonably screened at all seasons of the year from the view of adjacent residential lots and streets, and that the general landscaping of the site is in character with that generally prevailing in the neighborhood. The landscaping on the site is remaining in its existing conditions, which we submit successfully achieves the village's landscaping and screening goals with the property's prior more intensive use as a dance studio. There will be less impervious surface on the present plan than the existing condition due to the removal of the second driveway. We submit that the proposed site plan is more incongruous with the neighborhood than the previous use and will continue to screen the property from adjacent lots and is also consistent with the generally prevailing screening in the neighborhood. The next factor is trees, grading, and land clearing. The code requires that indiscriminate and excessive cutting of trees and the improper, indiscriminate, or excessive clearing or grading of land should be prevented in order to prevent the creation of barren and unsightly conditions, increased surface drainage problems, and increased municipal costs to control drainage and destruction of barriers to soil erosion. Preservation of existing trees is an important part of this objective. As previously discussed, the proposed site development plan limits the site disturbance to those areas that were already developed as part of the existing condition and use. In that regard, there will be no cutting of trees or excessive grading or clearing of land as we are utilizing the developed portion of an existing condition. Fifth factor pertains to museum and libraries, so we'll skip over that. The next factor is parks and playgrounds. The code states that in the case of residential uses, adequate parks and playgrounds must be provided for the village. As indicated in our environmental assessment form, we do not anticipate that the introduction of a new two-family home would impact to any ascertainable degree the availability of municipal resources, such as parks and playgrounds. So having gone through the criteria for site development approval, we respectfully submit that the proposed project meets all those criteria and will be a benefit to the village and residents. We can now turn to the conditional use permit for the two-family residence. The two-family residence is a permitted use subject to approval by this board. Per the regulations of the RO Residence District, the proposed two-family must provide parking for a minimum of 4 vehicles, provided they are not in the front yard. All of the parking here is beyond the front yard setback, and we are providing for 6 vehicles. The code requires that no construction shall be undertaken which would result in a change to the exterior of the building as to detract from the architectural style and pattern or character of the neighborhood. We submit that our proposed plan that shows a two-family residence is substantially in conformance with the patterns of development in the neighborhood and also in conformance with the existing structure on the property. It doesn't look that much different, it's still just 1 story. It's maintaining more or less the same footprint. The third factor is that no construction shall be undertaken which would result in an increase in the degree of noncompliance with existing bulk regulations for two families in the RO district. We're proposing a project that's 100% zoning compliant, so we would submit that we meet that criteria. Number 4 is that all requirements of Chapter 161 housing, which governs building codes and building requirements, fire safety, and so forth, are satisfied. The plan that we have submitted does comply with those conditions. And the fifth criteria is that 1 two-family detached dwelling is permitted on each lot. We're proposing 1 structure. The general provisions governing approval of conditional uses by this board are as follows: that the planning board may authorize the issuance by the building inspector of permits for any of the conditional uses for which this chapter requires a permit or approval by the planning board in the district in which such use is proposed to be located. In approving any such use, the planning board shall take into consideration the public health, safety, and welfare, the comfort and convenience of the public in general, and of the residents of the immediate neighborhood in particular. The criteria of this section include proposed structures, equipment, or material shall be readily accessible for fire and police protection. We would submit that the site development shows that the proposed two-family residence is just as readily accessible for fire and police protection as any other single or two-family residential structure. There should be no issue for emergency vehicles to access the site. The second factor is that the proposed use shall be of such location, size, and character that in general it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is proposed to be situated and will not be detrimental to the orderly development of adjacent properties in accordance with the zoning classifications. The proposed use here is consistent with the development of the district in so much as the predominant use in the immediate area is residential. The size of the structure is substantially similar to what's already there. It's only 1 story, just as the previous structure is, and maintains a similar footprint. So we respectfully submit that the proposed development poses no detriment to adjacent properties. The third criteria pertains to museum and library, so we'll skip that. The fourth criteria is in the case of any use located in or directly adjacent to a residential district, that the location and size of such use, the nature and intensity of operations involved in or conducted in connection therewith, its site layout, and its relation to access to the street shall be such that both pedestrian and vehicular traffic to and from the use and the assembly of persons in connection therewith will not be hazardous or inconvenient to the or incongruous with said residential district or conflict with normal traffic of the neighborhood. So the property is going to be used as a two-family residence. Its previous use was a dance studio. We submit that a two-family use is far less intensive than a dance studio, which is a place of public assembly where you can have, a crowd of people arriving for a dance class at the same time. There will be no assembly of persons on the site, and the proposed two-family residence will not conflict with the existing pedestrian and vehicular traffic in the neighborhood. If anything, it will improve. B, the location and height of buildings, the location, nature, and height of walls and fences, and the nature and extent of landscaping on the site shall be such that the use will not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land and buildings. Once again, this is a use that bears far less load than the existing use, the previous condition, and substantially conforms to its physical dimensions. So we would submit that we meet that criteria, and therefore we meet all the criteria for a conditional two-family. Unless the board has any questions, that's presentation. I know that we have had discussions with the planning board, and we have reviewed their latest planning memo. We understand that they are requiring us to
Submit a SWIP plan as well as a site clearing and grading plan, which we anticipate will be done before this board's next meeting. There's the issue of the performance bond. While it's unusual to have a performance bond
on a two-family home. We
understand that the code is such that if it's anything but a single family, a performance bond is required. Our estimated cost of construction is $500,000, and we have spoken. I've spoken with my clients, and they're prepared to post a $25,000 bond, which is 5% of that. The last outstanding issue is the site inspection costs. On review of the code, I'm aware that it's the greater of $250 or 5% of the required performance bond or the actual cost of inspection. In light of the fact that this is a not-for-profit developer, we would request that the board impose the actual cost of the inspection. So unless the board has any questions, that's all on our end tonight.
Okay, board members, questions?
I do. The project's being done by the United Way.
Yes.
Will the United Way own it and rent it out, or do they look to sell the two homes?
The United Way will own the property and rent it to individuals vis-a-vis a partnership with the town of Brookhaven. We're joined today by Allison Carpy. She's the Commissioner of Housing and Community Development in the town of Brookhaven, in case you have any more specific questions about that.
Okay, I did have one question on something that you had mentioned early in your presentation, and it was playgrounds well screened. So my question is there a possibility that one or two of the homes will have children?
The housing is intended at this time for seniors and senior disabled individuals, so we don't anticipate any playgrounds.
Okay, thank you very much.
Question, the current dance studio footprint, what's the approximate square footage?
I have here with us also Jean-Pierre Lardo from Fusion Architecture. Do you happen to know what the square footage is?
I do not, but I just noted that
You have to come up, give your name if you're going to speak, and just so the record's clear.
Yeah.
I'll just sit over there.
First of all, I need to stand up and face me.
John Pierre, J-E-A-N, last name P-I-E-R-R-E, last name is L-A-R-D-O.
Okay, have a seat and just make sure that mic's on. Yeah.
Got it?
Okay.
I do not have that square footage denoted, and I don't remember it, but I did note that the plans that are being presented here aren't the latest plans that we submitted that actually reflect the drainage requirements for this project. On that site plan, you'll see in basically like a dash line as to the size of the existing structure relative to ours or what we're proposing, and you'll see that it's a lot smaller. It's not comparable. Our two-family residence is smaller than what's there, so we're actually reducing the impact of a built structure.
Is that on one of the other plan sheets that we might
Can I
have?
just show it over here? Can I just point that?
Sure.
Okay. So again, this is not the most current plan, but it didn't really change that much. What we did was we actually put the drainage structures that show you, again, how we're gonna deal with the stormwater containment. We're removing this stage area. And you can see the existing residence actually goes to this over here. It extends over. So obviously this is where our proposed structure is, but the existing structure actually, the footprint is basically in this area and extends more to the north. So again, as I mentioned, our footprint is less than what was existing. And the square footage is all denoted on the plan as far as the footprint. Yeah, and on floor plans.
Any other board questions? Staff, Deirdre, comments, questions? We'll get to you. Yeah, we have a list of speakers who signed up. If you haven't signed a card, just put your hand up because somebody will come around and take your name and give it to me.
I already did.
Okay.
Okay, so like their team reiterated that it is a permitted conditional use. They're not gonna require any variances. They're within all the setbacks that are required. They made all the changes that the planning board noted during the last meeting where they had the work session introducing the application. I do have a hard copy of their most latest plan if anyone wanted to look at it a bit more. And like they said, that we just would require a SWIP plan for the process. And I know that they said no clearing, but if there's any grading being done, are you adding plantings, anything like that, just information we would just want to see as well, just to include that, make sure that whatever the work is being done is accurately detailed. But otherwise, they're supplying everything that we need and nothing's out of what the code is requiring.
Okay. I see that across the street, I guess that's the other side. What's the name of that roadway? The
The Vantage Court?
Vantage Court, yeah. The contours are pretty tightly spaced in that area. In terms of your site, is there a substantial change in elevation with the grading?
I, again, would like to just, maybe bring up, or maybe you want
I
to
have
see
the-
the hard copy of what we're proposing, but it's really minimal grade change. I think it's at the north section of the proposed parking area, and I'll point that out to you if I may.
Sure.
So in the most current plan, all we are doing is basically modifying the topography at this area, just so that way we have the proper drainage. And then we have a catch basin there. We had a couple of pools here, dry wells. And then what we did back here, we just did some minor grade changes just to kind of create a little flat area. But as far as affecting the existing topography, we're leaving it exactly the way it is. We're not addressing anything over here. This site, this area that we're providing or placing the footprint of the building, it's already there, right? So again, our footprint is much less than what is actually there. So we're, again, minimalizing the development of the site.
Okay. Anything else, Deirdre? Okay. All right, at this point, we will take comments from the public, and I'm going to read in order the speaker cards that I have. What we ask that you do when you come up, you're going to be asked to, you're going to get sworn in, so you give your name and address. If you address all your questions and comments to the board, and then we will relay them to the applicant or the appropriate person if we can't answer them ourselves, which is always possible. We then relay it to someone from the applicant's team who can answer the question, and then we relay it back to you. We just don't want to get into a back and forth between you know, the audience and the individual staff members. So that's the way it's always done. It's not anything new. So at this point, again, you can come up to the podium there and use that microphone. I believe that's on, right? At the podium? Okay. So everybody in the room will hear you as well. First up is Michael Albert from 26 Reeves Road.
Michael Albert. So my first question has to do with the use of the property, because it's clearly not a two-family house. Same owner is building it and renting it. It's rental housing. And its design is not for the typical single-family house that is on our block. So what this is I get it, two-family house, it's a little subterfuge. Call it what it is. Why is the town of Brookhaven's housing and community development involved is because this is really not free market housing. This is housing designed for tenancy. And we don't know who those tenants are. We don't know what their use is other than they're being placed there. So we really don't have the same type of homeowner. This is not for home ownership. This is rental housing.
Right.
And there are a host of other things that I'm very familiar with, and certainly moving it to a single driveway and the lot coverage, and I'm sure all those things about stormwater recovery and driving it down and grade changing. A specific question is, what is the first floor elevation? Which hasn't been addressed, which might raise the profile of the house. Is there a basement in this structure? 2 separate basements, 2 separate walkouts, and will those basements be used in a manner that is consistent with rental housing as opposed to single-family ownership? So the idea that it's been alluded that it's for seniors, so if that's the case, will it be then restricted by covenant to such senior-only housing? And of course, all the required construction elements of such use, handicap bathrooms and ramps and all of the things that you know very well about. The other question is it being tied into the sewer district? And I guess what's, again, I don't mean to repeat myself, but what is concerning is that this is public housing. The town of Brookhaven's housing and community development. So I don't know what the standards are for public housing. But this is certainly not a two-family development. Whatever that zoning is required for such rental housing, specialty housing, I think you have to ask that question. Isn't this really a change of zone? And I think that it's not zoned for this proposed use. In terms of the planting, the screening, there's no question about it that the construction, I would strongly suggest to look at the site. It clearly does need a planting buffer to screen it from the road, albeit it could be set back. It would be a very positive use. But the idea that a two-family house with what's going to amount to, they say they're proposing 4 parking spaces. Well, I want to know how many unrelated people are allowed to live in a house and what medical services are now going to be required when you drive in to meet with those clients who are maybe not necessarily ambulatory, but require medical services. So this is what I mean about the nature of the use of the property. It is clearly not where you're going to give 2 separate deeds to 2 separate single families.
Right.
And that's kind of the crux of this. Certainly stormwater recovery is important, paving, permeable storm, or non-permeable. A question about how many unrelated people are allowed to live in a single-family dwelling. These are clearly, it's shared housing. I believe you mentioned there are 2 bedrooms on each side.
I
But-
believe that's the case. That's correct, right?
Is that what it's proposed? 2 bedrooms on each side?
Yes.
Well, if you put 2 people per bedroom and it's shared housing, that's 4 occupants, that's 8 occupants of really kind of special requirements. So, and of course, you know, emergency turnaround, if an ambulance has to come, if it in fact is for just senior housing. And then the other question about senior housing is always one person qualifies and then suddenly non-age restricted enters the picture. Because if someone has a 19-year-old and you're 55 years old or 65, whatever the age restriction is, suddenly again, there's a way around this. That's what this is. This is a workaround. Now, I also want to disclose, because it's important that you understand my degree of expertise. I am a land use consultant. I am a licensed real estate broker. I'm a developer. And I've been a senior housing advocate for 10 years. And I've been involved in these kinds of ideas. They're ideals, and they're good ideals, but this is not what they're saying it is. Who's the landlord? When we have a complaint, who's picking up the garbage? This is really multifamily use. And that's kind of my pitch tonight.
Okay, you've raised several questions. So we'll try to get answers on some of these. I guess I'll leave it to you to decide who's going to answer the questions about, specific questions about the housing, unrelated people, medical services,
Communal dining as well.
communal dining, a number of people per bedroom, qualifications, if one person qualifies, do other people get in? I don't know who would be best to answer that.
So I just want to lead off with one point, which seems to have been a theme of what this gentleman was saying. The law of zoning is very clear in New York State. It's a police power that municipalities have to restrict use of land. But there is a fundamental difference between land use and land user. One can be regulated, the other cannot. So as far as the use is concerned, whether it's rented, to whom it's rented, who the owner is, who the tenants are, from a municipal perspective, respectfully, is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, the restriction on that building, should the board approve it, is that it must be used as a 2-family and in conformance with the laws of the village as far as a 2-family use is concerned. And that's how it will be administered, in conformance with the laws of the village. As far as the first floor elevation,
We indicated on the plan, I believe, and also there is no basement. As we mentioned, it's a slab on grade. So basically, it'll be what we call visibility, that if someone was to, at a later date, want to have handicap access, that it'll be naturally at the same grade, and we'll make it as such. But again, that's really kind of our decision to make as far as that goes, but it is a slab on grade, there is no basement.
and he asked a question about a sewer connection. There's an existing sewer connection that serves the premises currently, which we'll be
Okay.
utilizing.
And then
Okay.
as far as screening, this is up, going back to the site plan. I mean, that is up on the hill, so to speak, and so it's pretty far back, relatively speaking. We're not coming closer than the existing building. And again, as far as the massing of the structure, it's actually less than what you have there. In terms of use, again, it's a lower impact use to the neighborhood as a 2-family house. And certainly from a traffic perspective, you would think, it's certainly less impactful than what was there initially. I don't know if you had any other questions from an architectural point of view.
Yeah, I personally, I don't know, maybe more information about seniors and the uses that were mentioned, seniors and then seniors with disabilities, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's who they intend to do it for. But, once again, Mr. Chairman, if we were just a regular developer, so let's say I was a developer, I'm looking to build a two-family house.
Mhm.
No one's going to ask me what I'm going to do with it, whether I'm going to sell it, who I'm going to rent it to, because that takes us down a slippery slope. And I'll give you an example. Suppose the board says Chairman DiBiase is okay to live there, but Mr. Rosner isn't. He can't do it. Only you can. You know what I mean? And why should this be given to just Chairman DiBiase if you're using it in the same way? So that's the point we're trying to convey, is that the ultimate user of the premises is irrelevant to the purposes of, our review here.
how about in terms of, I guess it's United Way and Town of Brookhaven, or technically the landlords?
The
right?
United Way is the owner of the property, and the town of Brookhaven will help them fill the spots with tenants.
Okay,
So
if there's any request, or let's say I'm a tenant and I have a complaint, I'm given information of who to contact and, complain about the building, complain about,
You could contact the property owner, or you could contact the village code enforcement if there's an issue and deal with it that way, just like everybody else, right?
Specifically, Lee will be the property manager. Do you have any information on that?
The United Way is the owner of the property, and they're going to be responsible for maintaining the property just like every other property owner. And just like you could purchase a house and rent it and move across the country with no issue, and obviously you still have to be responsible for the property and make sure it's maintained, or there are enforcement mechanisms within the village and elsewhere to deal with it.
do you know if there are any other properties with this arrangement in, say, Suffolk County with the United Way and Brookhaven hooking up?
I haven't worked on them personally. I don't
Okay,
know.
You don't know, all right. Any other board questions? No? Okay. I think we probably, the
Just
the
what I-
applicant addressed as best they could your questions,
Yeah,
so.
But they avoided that. This is a single structure owned by one person with a very specific purpose. It's rental housing.
Mhm.
It's not two-family housing. Where's the two deeds so that it's two separate ownerships? He's gonna fix that. That's what I would advise my client to do. There should be two lots for a two-family house. Two-family. This is rental housing. It's not a two-family house. That's really my significant point.
Got a response to that?
Sure. There isn't any two-family home that has two deeds, okay? It's only done in one deed unless there's a subdivision or it's a two-unit condominium or something of that nature. But there's two-family homes all over Long Island, and there is one deed. And the other apartment is always rented. Or, it might be
Right, it's an
two.
accessory apartment. It's a single-family unit with an accessory apartment. You're calling it a two-family house. But really, you have a rental house here. That's its pure and simple design. It's multifamily.
Can I help out on this one a little bit with the code?
Sure. That would be good.
Two-family houses are not restricted to be owner occupied. So there are other two-family homes within Port Jeff that are completely rented out, not two deeds, not two separate people. That's permitted within the village. So they can have one owner with two separate people renting it out. And it's not restricted to who needs to be there, if they need to be related, if the two families need to be
Okay,
related.
but the town of Brookhaven's Housing and Community Development, when they begin.
There's
to
not
build these
restrictions on
things,
it.
I'm not suggesting that
Mhm.
it's not residential property.
In what way? If it's
In
being
what
used for
way?
residential
Because
use,
a
because the family,
municipality is in partnership with a nonprofit to build this and to rent it out to a specific clientele.
as long as it's being rented out to the a family unit, which is a very vague term,
It
then
certainly
it's
is.
permitted.
And how
There's
many-
no
how
restrictions
many
on it. We
unrelated
don't
people
define
are
it.
allowed? Is there any provision in the town code for how many unrelated people can live in a dwelling? In Southampton, for example, it's 4. So, but the village does not have that because they're dealing with rental property. And you're calling it a 2-family house. It's not a house and it's not designed for 2-family. It's allowed to be rented to whoever you want. We're not talking about that. And the idea of breaking this dynamic between the prohibitions against discriminatory rentals, that's different. We're not talking about that. We're talking about zoning. And there's no question about it, even though it's 2-family, according to the applicant. It's not 2-family housing. It's governmental rental housing under the provisions of what is allowed in typical zoning. This is not a typical use. It is the government building a house for a very specific governmental purpose. It's not a free market housing. If I go to apply to rent that house, I will be refused. So they talk about discriminatory practices. This is not for the people of this community. It's for outsiders to come in and rent with special needs. And if it's special needs, what are all the provisions? How are we to know what those special needs provisions that they're going to meet? We talked about senior housing.
Mhm.
We talked about medical needs. We talked about perhaps even dining needs. This is congregate living. It's another story. It's like a mini nursing home if it's
Oh,
for seniors.
Yeah.
So
I-
but
yeah.
this is what I'm saying.
I
This
think,
is
I think that's a stretch.
well, it's a workaround, but when you have 8 unrelated seniors, each having a bedroom, who's coming to take care of them? Who's coming to feed them? The ambulances are going to come in and out. What kind of services? Is there nursing service? Today, if you were elderly, you were entitled to 3 home health aides, 7
Yeah,
days a
well,
week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Sure.
he said senior housing.
All right. Andy, did you have a point?
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say that
You want to use a mic? So,
staff has heard the comments of the public, and we will provide in our staff report, point by point,
Mhm.
address of those comments.
right. Yeah, I think we're at the point where we're finished. At least with your points. Okay. All right, next speaker, Dan DeLuca, One Vantage Court.
Thank you. My name is Dan DeLuca. I have a few questions as well. And I support this because I think it's very vague. It is a rental property. I'm going to talk from another perspective. I'm actually the board president of the condo on Vantage. I also live at number 1. And I could tell you, I would love for someone to refurbish that property. There's a lot of perks with that property. Number 1 is the road. They have access to that road. They have, again, we talked about buffering and trees lined up Old Vantage. I'm going to tell you that the previous owner, as well as, I don't know what the current owner would do without cleaning up the mess over there, because we absorb 90% of the costs on that property. From fallen trees, we have deer running across the property, going from one side to the other. Again, part of the ownership, I believe, is the buffer on Vantage. The property line goes straight across. We're also next year in the process of doing a road that we're going to cost to bear that entire project because the previous owner really wasn't involved with actually keeping it up. So we would love to kind of find out some more information of that end of it as well. You have 30-foot pines that drop every other week, so we're constantly maintaining that property. So I'd be very interested in what you planned on doing about that. I know that they brought up also about possibly swings. You know, if it's a senior development, then it should be a senior development where there could be consistency and continuity that we could, you know, people live there. And again, I think very vague, we're very vague. We don't really know what's about it. The development on Vantage is a $900,000 area. I'm sure everyone would like to know who's going to be moving in there. Do we have illegal people going in there? We all just came off a presidential situation where, you know, who's going to be in there? I think that's a major thing. The other thing is, I think he brought up about if it's going to be a house, why not make it one house? So there's less liability of other people or other people squatting or moving in and putting in other individuals in rooms. It's, again, it is a residential area. I can't follow him. He has some great answers, and I thank you for speaking your point. I just think we need more information. And I would hope that we could get some of those other answers done. You know, we just planted, if I could point, behind that process, behind where you were pointing to, we just landscaped all of that stuff up there. You know, we put in trees. We're trying to make it look better. So I really would love to see the landscaping that you plan on doing, or is there going to be a fence there to give those people some privacy? You know, that could be something else we can look at. But quite frankly, it's got to be cleaned up because it is a mess.
Now, did you mention a road improvement?
Yeah, the road basically on Vantage, it's a private road.
Right.
So primarily it's due. So we have to look at drainage.
Or you're gonna upgrade,
Yeah. We're
rehabilitate?
Yeah, we're looking to do that sometime, maybe June of 2025, but it's a major cost. And again, it's part of their road as well.
Right. Any response to?
I'll address some of the concerns or the comments. First and foremost, part of any development, we always look at, try to be to be in context with the rest of the neighborhood. And certainly, while we're going through construction, if there's fallen trees or anything that even remotely looks like a dead tree that perhaps we should, consider taking down, of course, with the village's approval. That's all part and parcel of a project. And that's with any developer, that's a consideration to make it the best it could be, within reason. If the concern is screening, because you don't want to see the families in the backyard, because that's what I'm kind of hearing, we can accommodate that, for privacy. We're not looking to, affect any of your plantings at all. And again, just to reiterate, we're not affecting any of the existing growth, any of the trees along the periphery of the building. We're really basically just getting rid of the existing structure and putting what we think is a pretty nice looking house, a two-family house. But as far as screening goes, as from the perspective of a fence, if that's we're certainly open to that. And that could be easily incorporated into the project. And perhaps it's maybe it is a better thing to do that. But again, we looked at it as far as the location or where the two-family house is situated. That basically, less encumbrances or less structures on this particular site is probably the better way to go. But again, if the concern here is that to provide screening, we can certainly do that.
All right. Just more
Okay.
information.
All right, thank you. Next up is Diane, is it Milliard?
Yes. Yes, I do. Diane Milliard, Milliard, 31 Vantage Court. Thank you. Yes, first of all, the conditional uses, he spoke of It was a dance studio, a beautiful dance studio, a beautiful home that fit into the neighborhood. I don't see, could I see this project again? The frontage of it, please? I don't see that being anywhere near what the house is that's there now. It's a beautiful, large, L-shaped ranch with a stone frontage. It's just a beautiful part of the neighborhood. Never bothered us to have the dance studio there. It was actually something we really enjoyed having. It was only there once a week. That's when people came. And it was all these beautiful little children dancing in the backyard. I mean, it was just a beautiful thing. And I don't see how this usage from a residential, one-family residential house to a two-family residential house is even happening. Because if I bought that ranch, which I wish I did, if I had bought that ranch, I couldn't turn around and make it a two-family house. What would I have to do that? I would have to get a variance, wouldn't I? I wouldn't.
It's a permitted use. It's a conditional permitted use to be a two-family. Anyone could have come in and built a two-family house.
When did that happen?
It's in the code. It's the code.
The code for everyone that lives in Port Jeff Village?
No, it's within the zoning district.
So you live at number 1? So you would have the same option?
That's a different zoning district. This is the RO zoning district. It's a conditional use of the RO zoning district.
Well, I wasn't aware of that.
It's in our code. It's
Yeah,
on the website.
but that does not look anything like what was there. It's not going to be and throughout the county, I have been throughout the county, I've worked throughout the county. I've seen these homes. I understand that we can't control who's going to live there, who you're renting to. That's perfectly fine. That's acceptable. But the homes don't get kept up. They get built. They look great when they're first built. They're beautiful. They look wonderful. But as time goes on, and there's one off of Bicycle Path. As time goes on, things just deteriorate. The foundations don't take good care of them. So I see that happening down the line. And basically everything else that was said between Mr. DeLuca and Mr. Albert, I totally agree with.
Okay.
But that's my concern. So I'm going to miss that beautiful studio. I'm going to miss that beautiful house.
All right, thank you. Next and final speaker, Robert Rotella.
Grotell. Yep. 690 Main Street. Yes, good evening. My name is Robert Grotell. My wife and I live at 690 Main Street. We are the adjacent property owner. The gentleman described the adjacent property along a 400-foot line. That's us. So we have a couple of issues and concerns that I'd like to talk about this evening. And I would like to state that we do support a lot of the comments that were made previously this evening. It's as stated, it's a 2.65 acre lot. And our major concern is that this is going to be part of some incremental development. That yes, this is the application tonight, but the ultimate build out on 2.65 acres is going to be much more, perhaps multiple properties or structures on the property. So that's really my major concern, is that is this the final build, or is there an ultimate build out for 2 or 3 additional structures, which, and if it's done incrementally, I'm not really sure about the environmental rules and regs that perhaps this is sidestepping. The other question I have, and the site plan was put up, is that is the existing buffer between the two properties, there's a significant amount of woodlands, I'll call it, significant volume of trees. It was stated that no trees would be removed. We would like an affirmative commitment that that is the case. that the existing buffers, between the properties will remain. I ask that because we noticed that a number of the trees along our driveway, and we have a very long driveway off of Main, it's about 200 feet long, were marked. And we don't know why they were marked. They were spray painted with little X's on the back of them. So that's basically it. I mean, the presentation was very informative. I thank the gentlemen who have spoken. Again, not to be repetitive, but I do support the comments that were previously mentioned. But those are our two concerns. That is this the first step of a multi-step process or development, and will the existing buffers be maintained? So if those could be addressed, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to respond?
You wanna
Either.
take it?
I guess so.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess first and foremost, there is no plans to, it's not part of a master plan. It's just that the way we're presenting it is how it's gonna stay. As far as the markings on the trees, for the purposes of site plan review and for civil engineering, we had a surveyor go out and actually individually mark each tree, so that way we can determine the caliper and make sure where the tree lines are, that we're not affecting it. And in essence, again, not to be redundant, but we're like literally placing the building within the built area that we already have. And again, as I pointed out before, the footprint, there's a couple things I just want to express. The footprint of the building is smaller. It doesn't encroach to the north as much as it did. The amount of pavement the reduction of pavement is significant. We're getting rid of we're deleting the driveway to the north. We're removing a significant amount of impervious area to the south. And again, it's denoted on as a dashed line, so I could point it out for you for sure. But there is a significant amount of lessening of the impact of the existing property. So everything that we're proposing is within that general area. So we're not, this is not part of a bigger plan. It's just simply a two-family house in the middle of where you have the
Right.
existing house.
Well, and I appreciate the information. Is there anything that would prohibit you from coming back in future years and saying, oh, you know what, we're going to add 2 more structures to the property?
As the code stands right now, that would require a variance and a pretty significant variance.
Yeah.
So you, in any event, would be I don't know what's going to happen 30 years from now, but the way the code is now, you can't put any more residential structures on that lot except for that one.
Okay.
And I don't think the planning board, well, just the initial thought was I don't think the planning board would entertain future addition to what's proposed on the site now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, I have 2 new speaker cards from the audience. Paul Ulinski is next.
Good evening. What would the max occupancy be? First question.
Is that in terms of number of people?
Yes.
I don't know that you would have an answer for that.
It's a 2-bedroom house.
Mhm.
It's 2 people, 1 person, 2 people. It could be 4.
It's defined by
per
the
unit.
code is what a family is.
Right.
That's it.
A family unit.
Who can rent it? Can anybody? Can I go and rent it?
I assume you need to qualify as a senior or a senior with disability.
Okay,
Is
so
that correct?
it's confirmed. Is it confirmed it'll be a senior housing only
That's what the proposal was.
proposal?
Senior
Well, that's what they're saying, yes.
Right. And
That's what
when
they
will we
stated
know
tonight.
this?
I'm sorry.
When will we know this?
No,
That it's senior housing, as they describe.
they've described it as senior housing. I think in the approval, should we approve it, we would state that as, it's intended to be senior housing, and it should be always senior housing.
Okay.
That would be
timeframe?
a condition.
Yeah, within a
approval.
year, that would be answered?
Uh,
At what time frame will that be answered?
The board's going to review the testimony from tonight and the comments that were made and the applicant's presentation. And, typically when we close a hearing, and I don't know that we're going to close the hearing tonight, chances are we probably will. Typically, there's a 62-day time frame from the close of the hearing to the approval of the project. But that means that, we need some more information from the applicant. We have to review the plan. So in this case, since we're not meeting until January, that could be extended,
Understood.
that 62-day time frame.
Okay. The gentleman spoke about additional construction. Is it possible this could be changing to a greater than 2 units?
No, I think we already covered that. There's no real room on the site for that. It would be a significant variance, and I don't know that, based on the presentation tonight and the way the building's laid out, I don't know that we'd entertain any additional building on this site.
Okay. Will it be eligible for Section 8 housing?
I don't know. I don't think so. Senior Section 8? Answer for that?
No.
No?
No, would not.
So these will be tenants with the help of Brookhaven Town. How does that work? I'm just kind of confused about that.
Maybe you want to just go over that again.
My understanding is that they would be administrating a housing program like a nonprofit like the Long Island Housing Partnership does. It's not uncommon for nonprofit developments like this one to partner with an organization that helps them find tenants.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Last speaker, Michael Zickman.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
I was just wondering, so if this is rentals, I'd actually like to know more from the developer. I get the attorneys here and can give some vague answers, but I'd like to know a little bit more. In terms of rentals, is there leasing? How quick would the turnover be? What kind of leasing are they proposing? Is this month to month? Is this week to week? Is this yearly leases? Also, if it is for elderly and possible, disabled people, is there any ADA compliant ramps, elevators, lifts, anything to do with that, indicating that it may be for elderly disabled people, or being used for elderly disabled people in the future? Maybe they get somebody in there that doesn't need a ramp, but when you want to have a house that has a ramp that's more set up for elderly and disabled people, you'd build it when you're building a house, as a forethought as opposed to an afterthought. It's really what I'm wondering here is more along the lines of leasing, who they're renting it out to, can it be changed? I just would like a little bit more information on what their plan is from the developer itself, not just from a talking point, or an assumption.
Okay, when you say can it be changed, you meant the lease, the length of the lease, or?
Yeah, the length of leases and anything having to do with leases. Who's going to be in there? How long are they going to be in there? Is it quick turnover? Can multiple people be there? Who are they renting it to? We say, all right, elderly and disabled. How long? Is it short-term care kind of thing?
Okay.
That's really what I'm after, and just any more information than the vague assumptions that we got so far tonight. Any more information?
All right.
Thank you.
Got a response?
They're looking to do the standard 1-year leases.
One-year lease.
And, typically if it's a good tenant, they continue the lease.
Okay.
As far as handicap compliancy, or Again, this design is a slab on grade.
Yes.
So it'll be we'll have this, again, it's a term called visibility, and we'll have provisions that essentially we don't really, with a slab on grade, you'll have accessibility kind of naturally built in.
Yeah, for ramps,
Well, we don't need-
afterthoughts or whatever.
There is no need for ramps. So if it's a slab on grade, basically we're gonna set the elevation, and then basically any kind of walkway would be gradually, or it could be level
Mhm.
up to the first floor elevation.
Okay.
And so that alleviates anything of handicap ramps or handicap lifts, elevators. I think that's one of the things that you mentioned.
Mhm.
So essentially, again, as a slab on grade, it naturally it's the most natural sort of development for that particular need.
And what I mean also by ADA compliant, and yes, outside is one thing, but if you're planning to have elderly people with disabilities, is anything on the inside of this to show that it's going to be elderly with people with disabilities? Anything on the inside? Showers that may be handicap accessible, countertops that may be lower, things that may be different to show that it is indeed for an elderly disabled person. Some pre-planning for the construction of elderly disabled people.
So it's a good question, and it's a voluntary requirement, so to speak. And there's being handicap accessible, in which you have these structures or accommodations built in, or it's basically called adaptability. So you have the ability, depending on the needs of the individuals that are the tenants of the house, that you could adapt that to suit their particular need. So in other words, I just want to use the most simplistic of things. It's like, so if you need grab bars, we provide blocking behind the walls, so you could provide blocking. You could actually install the grab bars at a later date.
So that's not part of the plan.
What?
It's not part of the plan.
We're just, again, am I supposed to answer this question?
Well, it's not, we encourage you, you already spoke, we encourage you not to yell out something, ask a question from.
So again, the term is adaptability, and so adaptability means that we provide the spatial requirements for the particular accessibility, maneuverability, and for future sort of accommodations for the individuals that live there. So on a plan like this at this point, we're just showing basically a kitchen, but we wouldn't necessarily show you the kitchen layout having an accessible sink at this point, right? Because we're really kind of dealing with the site plan, drainage, and the use issues. So
The only reason I kind of bring that up is because if you're going to put elderly people with disabilities in somewhere, it kind of almost, where does your head go when you say elderly people with disabilities? You kind of think of facility. You kind of think a nursing home, whatever the case is. But what I'm saying is,
one of the things I want to say is it's embarrassing. 55 is not that old anymore. So I could actually be, in at this particular residence. So I don't look at 55 as it's basically individuals that qualified based on the program. So I don't look at.
but what was said was
I don't look at-
disability,
these are-
elderly and disability. So
these-
I see your
these-
elderly
These
point.
individuals are able to basically care for themselves.
Mhm.
And that, it's no different than anyone here that's 55 and older living in a home.
So you say these individuals can care for themselves. Do you know who's going to be in there? We don't know. We just heard elderly and disability. So we can't speculate.
We mentioned
already.
to you, it's considered a family unit who's going to be living in these homes.
Indeed. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I welcome any more information that is pertained to this, and I support everybody's comments here. Thank you.
Any board questions based on what we've heard?
Just to clarify, the town of Brookhaven is helping the United Way to find tenants, or is the United Way helping the town of Brookhaven to find tenants?
Town of Brookhaven is helping United Way to find tenants to put there.
Thank you.
Restricted only to town of Brookhaven recommended tenants?
We can't entertain, you've already spoke, so,
Yeah, but that's what it is.
all right, good. Appreciate if you don't yell out anything from the audience. I'm not saying you were yelling, but, we're done with the public portion, at least. Deirdre, any comments? Okay. here's my thought, that we close the public hearing but that you agree if we have questions, because we have only one meeting in the 62-day, that you'd be willing to file for an extension until we get everything resolved.
For the
That you
62-day
request-
period?
Yeah,
Yeah.
request the 62 days, because we may have further discussion, comments, based on what we've heard tonight.
If the
Um,
board needs a reasonable time, you know, you
Mhm.
could have the staff contact me and we'll work everything out.
Okay, everybody comfortable with that? Yeah, okay, can I get a motion to close the hearing?
I'll make the motion to close the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, public, for your comments. Questions? Okay, we're gonna move down again. Okay, so we have revised plans.
Yes.
Okay. Deirdre, do you have you had initial comments on those, right? Or questions, or you sent a memo, no? Yeah.
So they expanded into the property to the north, and then was able to do further expansion just to
Can I
help.
just interrupt just for 1 second? So just late this afternoon, that space that was available, Natural Hound, which is next to me, had first availability to take that space and did not want it. Just this afternoon, they decided they want it. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
actually going to
Back
kind
to
of
the-
split it. No,
Oh,
So
okay.
it's going to be a smaller version of what I gave you. I actually have something similar as to what it's going to be. So the space that I have next to me is small, and I've been trying to make it work. So I've
Mhm.
had my architect has actually come up with 3 different plans. So since Natural Hound is going to take that space or half the space, I'm going to go back to one of the plans that he made for me that you haven't seen yet.
Okay.
So this plan here I need to tweak. So I brought it with me. So it's actually smaller than what you've seen.
So it's
So
just,
I brought that with me. I didn't mean to, trust me, I didn't expect this. 4:30 this afternoon.
we've had a few surprises today.
Yes, quite a few surprises.
So it's, so
Unfortunately.
there's no L shape in the back then?
No, if you want
Okay,
to see
that's
it,
cut
I have it
off.
here. It'll be
Okay,
something
so it's
similar
just,
to
we,
this.
we saw the initial planning.
Yeah, this is different. There were 3 different versions.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is I'm backtracking from that L shape back to condensing it. So it's just a smaller space. Concept, but smaller space. I
Where
have a
is
copy for everyone if you want me to.
Please,
And
where's Natural Hounds?
Natural Hound is on the opposite side of the building.
Deirdre, did you have any thoughts, any further comments on what, even though now it's just the one unit?
Yeah, I think the only concern about this was, would there still be, because I know that the reason why you had originally wanted to expand was because of the issues expanding the kitchen originally. So is it now going back to expanding the existing kitchen?
Yeah, so I'm adding, no, there's still gonna be it's gonna be a pasta kitchen. So it's on the plan. So I'm not going
Oh,
back to
yeah,
the
yeah.
original plan.
Yeah, but I'm
So-
saying like the existing kitchen, is that expanding at all?
No, it's staying as
Okay.
is. Nothing
Okay,
is
still
changing
staying
at
the
the
same,
pie.
you're just not having
Yeah,
a second
the first
kitchen
plan
in the
was becoming too
second
intrusive on the
area.
pie.
Okay.
It's been there for 20 years and it was just creating too much change. I decided just to leave it.
Mm.
So I'm just creating a small pasta kitchen on the other side.
Okay.
So it doesn't interfere.
Okay. And who has control over the number of seats at the bar? That's a formula based on the length of the bar, is it?
That's
Linear feet? Or is it
for, yeah, there's like
fire marshal
occupancy, that's what the fire
also?
marshals,
So
yeah.
he'll have comments on that.
Yes, so I forwarded
Okay.
to the fire marshals already, because I forwarded the original plans to the fire marshals.
Oh, you did?
Their comments were just that they wanted to see the clearance, because I think the previous plan that we originally saw just didn't have dimensions, so they wanted to see the dimensions.
Yeah,
You supplied it,
I
so.
provided that to you.
Yeah, so they still haven't commented back on those. But I think that was really their only concern about that, and if like the hours would change, which she also addressed in the memo, that the bar
I saw
will
the
be open till
hours, yeah.
midnight, the restaurant is the part that closes till 10.
Mhm.
Would it be the existing pie space would be closed off at 10, or would that still, and like the bar would be?
Well, it
the new
depends. If the
space?
pie is done and finished, I would
Mhm.
probably close that off just so people aren't roaming around.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how do you close? There's a connection, right? Where
Yeah,
you close
there's
the connection?
So this is
in the
a
middle?
rough draft of what I have. I can
Right.
tweak this up better. So there is a copy right here. That goes through the pie.
Okay.
The
Gotcha.
the bar stools and the additional restaurant seating, it's not only a fire marshal issue, there's parking impact. Has that been looked at?
Right, so we were trying to find out if there was anything, probably when it came into being, the space in general, because there was that part of the code that says if you were within 200 feet of a municipal lot, you got a little bit of like leeway with that.
Right.
So now that's out of the code. So that was one of the questions that we wanted to look into the parking further. And that's why we need the revised seating and seeing how many seats there were.
Yeah, this
So-
is actually gonna be smaller.
Yeah, so
less
we'll need to
seating.
do the parking calculation, but this was also different than the first one and then the second one, different calculations, so we'll have to do the parking
Sorry.
calculations for it. Because there will be an increase from the I believe the previous was the hair salon, so
Mhm.
that would be a service, store. So that was one parking space per 300 square feet. But since this is a restaurant, that's one per 100, I believe. So it does up the parking a bit, and then taking into account also, I think there's a calculation with the bar for every seat or every length of the bar would also include and increase the parking. So we'll take a look at that as well.
Okay. Any other questions? So we're moving, we're evolving here. Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, I just backtracked a little. This was a plan that I had that I moved from when I was going to the L shape, but then I'm not gonna go. But I'm gonna have this tweaked a little bit. This is
Okay.
just a
All right.
little modifications here and there, but that'll be the general, just.
You tell me what this is?
This is the pie.
Okay, but what, are these two sinks and is this a kitchen?
Yeah, this is the kitchen.
And then this is,
This is a pasta kitchen. This is all, the up front is a whole pasta making room. So all this is gonna be for homemade pasta. So this is a kitchen over here that's gonna be. And the front is the pie is right here.
So they would move the pasta from here and put
Well, it has to dry for 24 hours, but it will get the general idea. So everything is all gonna be at home. Thank you.
And those are two, where did I see the ADA bathrooms? These are ADA.
So this is one ADA.
One ADA, okay.
One
but you're gonna
ADA.
tweak
I have two ADA bathrooms at the pie.
Okay.
And I believe this is an ADA bathroom, but it's all connected.
You got- right.
It looks like it's just going to be this area that's in pink. Is that what we're kind of focusing on?
It's gonna be the area in pink,
Right.
and then the green area, it's probably gonna be about 6 feet into that. We're gonna share the space.
So
Yeah.
you're gonna,
And again, my apologies, this only happened late this afternoon, so. Yeah, so we're gonna share that space. But this plan here is taking about 6 feet into that space.
This one here or the plan that shows?
Well, this one here, but this, I didn't completely tweak this plan because I moved to a different direction, but now that I'm gonna go back in this direction, I can get another better revision of this property plan. But it'll be something along, very close to what's here.
I would assume this is the case, but the existing pie and the new space.
Yeah.
You're gonna open it up and.
Yeah, there's, right in the back, there's a, you walk.
So that's it, so just a small, so not the whole, this
No.
wall staying.
Yeah, the
It's
wall
there.
is staying, there's an opening in the back, being that there's a bar in here. I didn't want, and the pie is very family orientated.
Right.
I didn't really want to have kids rolling around. It just creates separation. Is that everything?
Good. Question?
Okay.
Okay.
leave this
All right,
copy for you.
thanks.
Okay, great.
Okay, we'll look forward to seeing the plan.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. I'll get it to you like Monday or Tuesday. Okay, great.
I like the large scale, I can read it.
Oh, that was the, I didn't even know that was the plan. Well, it doesn't matter. All right, 31 Pilgrim Drive is next. I don't know if the applicant,
They had the work contract. They want to be heard in January.
okay, I'm sorry. Should have noted that. Yeah, 25 Waterview, okay, come on up. It's a whole team. Maybe one or two of you want to come up. You can bring a chair up here and there's a mic. So. Trying to outnumber us? Or?
Well, it's important. I'm Eve from Swim King, so I'm the one that filed all the papers. We have the homeowner, we have the person that is building the retaining wall, Nick Montani, and then
Oh, that's helpful.
the builder of the swimming pool company, Luke Franzo. So the homeowner, the pool builder, and the,
One second, I see
okay,
Cindy.
I just need each one of your names to,
okay.
one at a time.
Richard Bell, I'm the homeowner.
Thank you.
Nick Montani, masonry contractor.
Montani?
Yep, Montani.
Okay. And I know you. Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'd just like to put something on the record. I'm a neighbor, the Bells. I'm probably 500, 700 feet as the bird flies to the property, but walking and driving, it's much further. So I'm kind of up above, but just putting it out there. I really don't think I have a I don't think I have a conflict. Just want to put that
You
there.
want me to put it on the record?
Please. Yep.
Thank you, Lee.
Okay. Where do we begin?
Well, let's begin with, I filed the swimming pool permit and I filed the retaining wall permit, and prior, simultaneously, I got New York State DEC a letter of non-jurisdiction, because that was based on the topography and how far we were away from the water.
Right.
And so this whole production of the pool and retaining wall meets all the code requirements. We don't need a variance. We meet all those codes. And so all the preliminary questions, we submitted. One tree is going to be taken down. We marked it on the site. We also submitted a photograph of that tree and a survey showing that. The tree is 1 tree, 2 feet in diameter. It's an oak tree. And then removing of two.
The oak tree is currently partially buried. So because of the grade has changed on the property, so the oak tree root system is actually buried. So that doesn't bode well for the life of the tree. So that tree leaving is probably going to help it, because the root system is starved of oxygen.
Yeah, and 1 tree is not a significant amount of clearing.
No, 1 tree, and then the removal of 2 juniper bushes and just assorted perennials. I also provided that, and that's also marked on the property currently. So the survey that shows those items, I submitted hard copies and a PDF to Deirdre. I have a copy of that if you see that. Yes, there is. So that's that.
You're not in the coastal erosion hazard
No,
zone, no?
that's why we were able to get a letter of non-jurisdiction. And so I think the questions were about the retaining wall, the cross sections. We submitted all of that. We submitted the basic cost of construction. So we're waiting to get the actual bond amount so we can get this going.
Okay, maybe talk to us about the retaining wall and the height, number of walls, things like that.
Yeah, so it's 2 tiers, 4 feet each, and it's the strongest block that Cambridge makes, 8-inch Sigma. It interlocks, has a setback, set on a 6-inch RCA base with rebar, backfilled with drainage gravel, and the wall will have drainage throughout as well. We're going to be planting each tier. I've been working on the property for over 5 years, even after all those rainstorms, never seen an issue.
Good.
Yeah. Even the last storm.
Good, okay. And that gets reviewed by the building department, right, because of the heights?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe more questions from the board?
Looks pretty straightforward.
It doesn't have a lot of grade there, as opposed to some of your other neighbors that are to the south.
It kind of levels off by this. It's not so steep at all.
She's got photos. I'm like, I didn't think that was the right area. That looks a little more.
Yeah, it's in that spot where it's, my neighbor has a pool. Pool is basically in the shadow and the retaining walls are all within that shadowed area.
Yeah, pretty much.
Doesn't protrude much beyond the existing patio that's on site, which is gonna be removed and rebuilt.
So it kind of lines up with the house to the pool and the house to the south.
Roughly.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, close. Yeah, it's close.
Yep. Just on the opposite side of the property, it's more to the.
But to be honest, like their drop off is way, and their property line is
You're farther
way
back.
not. We have much more. But- And less drop.
I think it was 67 feet from the bottom wall to the actual beach. So it's plenty.
There's existing vegetation there that's not gonna be impacted. There's just a tree and some aesthetic bushes up in the existing patio area, so.
I think the only question that I have for the board is that usually we do, bonds based on the cost of construction. I'm not sure if we wanted to limit it just to the cost of construction for just the retaining wall, if we wanted to do the whole project, if full included, or, that was just the question I had for the board, how they wanted to do that.
I think it's typically just the wall.
Just the wall? Okay.
Yeah, the wall would be sufficient. That's all we're really focusing on.
That's what I figured, but just to be safe rather than spend more, spend less, didn't want to scare them with the price. Okay.
Does the building department review any like erosion? Like, do they put forth like you need silt fence or straw bales, or is that through the board here?
So the DEC usually has their own restrictions for how they want it built on bluffs, and then the building department is aware of those restrictions as well. You're out of jurisdiction, but they still kind of keep those in mind because of how close you are. But the building inspector will have his own conditions about keeping it up to building code and all that stuff as well.
Do we have to go, I know you don't have a meeting next month and it's not till January. Is this all going to be decided before next month?
I'll prepare a resolution that'll have the bond amounts and everything like that that can be voted on, and hopefully we could do that in one meeting. But it will be unfortunately in the January meeting. Would be the next soonest time that it can be voted on. But it should be all packaged and approved, and hopefully if the board sees fit to approve all at that meeting.
Just if there's no real concerns here, I'd love personally to get the pool in before it gets cold. As you know, because I want it to settle and sit and the ground to settle before my contractor comes in to do all the hardscape. So if we wait till January, there's a chance I don't get the pool in before it gets cold and the ground gets hard. And then I'm in a really bad position, and I'm not gonna put the pool in then until the following year. Because I wanna have the pool for the summer, being very honest. So if there's any way to expedite the decision-making, just so we can move faster. If it's a no, then it's a no, and then it's too bad.
It's up to the board.
Okay, just putting it out there.
Yeah, we don't have a meeting in December.
You can't decide now based on what you're hearing.
We need on this one? No, I don't think we need.
No.
Public. We need a resolution. We don't have that tonight. So
And
we
now
can't-
the
we can't vote on
resolution
it.
just says the bond and.
Yep, that's all.
Oh,
That's
everything.
that.
Yeah.
Because you know the amount.
Yes, well, we have to do the 5%, but that then gets its own vote from the board.
Oh.
Yeah.
It'll be January, but you know what? It doesn't get cold, it doesn't get cold anymore, so it might still be 70 degrees. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the best we can do. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So
All right.
nothing else from us needs to be presented?
No, I don't believe so. Yeah.
After us, it goes to the building department. Yeah.
Yep.
Goes right to them.
All right, thank you.
We submitted this a long time ago. So
Yep.
it's a little frustrating because of all the process that we went through. And the rehash that you guys have had, and I spent $10,000 basically to give you guys what you needed. And to now come sit here and to hear that, and everything is right, I know everything's right, and we have to wait because you guys aren't getting together, is kind of disappointing. I pay a lot of taxes in the town, I think it's a little discouraging. I think you should be supporting what we're doing. I redid my house, it looks beautiful, I think the neighborhood looks beautiful, I contribute to the town. It's just a little disappointing that you can't be like, okay, yeah, this looks right, let's just move on.
Well, keep in mind, this is the first time we're seeing this. So irrespective.
I know what we've submitted, so whatever.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Is there a, normally a meeting once a month, but there is none next month?
None
because of
scheduled for August and December.
Travel. Okay, we'll talk to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay. I think we're done. Nothing else. Nope. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Gil moved to adjourn for a second.
Barbara.
Thank you.
No, they did.
Short-term memory issue.
So just to clarify, the last application, they filed a building permit application and we reviewed it and said, no, it has to